guys, my name's Levi Gates, and welcome to DETALKS. With me, Mr. Gordon McCall is here. Thank you, man, for being here.
Hey, it's great to be here, Levi. Thank you.
I appreciate it. So, for those of you that don't know, Gordon McCall is the master of some of the coolest events at Monterey Car Week, as well as you have led. I mean, just in my conversations with you, are a pretty amazing person, and the kind of stuff and the things that you get to do. Give us a basic background, who you are, what you've done. I know for those detailers have heard about the McCall detailing team, the McCall event, or McCall's events at Monterey or Motor Week or any of that kind of stuff. The detailers know that there's a select few detailers that usually get picked to go to Monterey to work at the Quail and at your Motorworks revival.
Yep.
But they don't know much more about that. And we've tried to show some of those things. We've put that on our YouTube channel. We've got a couple videos of us when we were at Monterey doing that stuff, working with the Mafia.
Yeah.
But tell us just about yourself, how you got into the industry, how you got into cars, where you came from, all that stuff.
Sure, Levi. Well, thanks for asking, for starters.
You're welcome.
I feel really fortunate because I'm doing something I love, and I really always have. I mean, I've never had a job that I didn't love, and it's always been in the automotive sector. So I'm one of those guys that's turned avocation into a vocation. And I think when you get to do that, when you're fortunate enough to do that, you got to take advantage of all the opportunities that come your way. So for me, starting off as a kid, I know most guys I know, and I think you're a great example of this, got their interest in cars either from their dad or a grandfather, or someone in the family.
Right, yeah.
Where you're brought out to the garage as a kid and you're cleaning tools or you're working on the lawnmower, whatever it might be. I lost my dad when I was 8, so I didn't have that as a kid. And I always wondered, where did I get this passion for cars? Because it's real, it's serious, it's part of who I am, and it's been going on for a long time. Well, I had a mom that really understood me in terms of how I reacted when I got Matchbox cars and Corgi toys for Christmas and birthdays. So here I'm a little kid pushing cars around on the carpet, but I'm also taking them apart. I'm painting the wheels, and this is a long time ago.
Yeah.
I've been around a while, so this isn't anyway. So that progressed into just me wanting to pursue what are cars all about?
Yeah.
And what are motorcycles all about? Sports played a really big role in my life. So I was one of those guys who was good at school, but really the main reason to be good at school was so that I could play sports and ultimately peel away on my bicycle, which later led to a motorcycle, which later led to cars. So I've got a common story. I've heard a lot of people tell this exact same story. When I turned 14, I had my eyes on a want ad in the local, I'm from the Monterey Peninsula. I live out in Carmel Valley with my wife, a couple of German short-haired pointers, but I picked up an ad at 14 in the local newspaper for a Honda CL90.
Okay.
I'd never ridden a motorcycle before.
Yeah, 14 years old, just found an ad.
Found that. The cool kids in the neighborhood where I grew up had mini bikes, Tacos, Bonanzas. That wasn't me. I never had a mini bike, but I just thought the whole motorcycle thing was so cool. So I see this ad for a Honda CL90. It was $100, so I took a bus over to the car dealership where this guy worked, Porsche dealership, and I bought this Honda, and I'm just thinking, what is this guy thinking? So I'm giving him $100, which I got from selling my Raleigh Grand Prix bicycle, which I saved up lawn clipping money to buy. I pay him $100. I'm 14 years old, and granted, I'm 6'5", and I was probably 6 foot when I was 14, so I've always been a little taller than my age, whatever. It was hysterical because I'd never ridden a motorcycle before. And here he's selling me this bike, and he's like, "You've got a license, right? And you know how to ride, right?" And I'm like, "Well, of course. I'm not going to say no." So I get the bike, I push it around the corner, and it literally took me, I'm not kidding, at least an hour to figure, what do you, Anyway, I got the thing running, rode the back roads home, couldn't take it home because my mom didn't know I bought this thing. So I've got to tell you, Levi, that Honda CL90 taught me everything. 14 years old. Yeah. It's an unauthorized purchase, something I'm not supposed to have. I kept it at a friend's house down the street. And I just realized on that motorcycle, for one, when things weren't running right, I couldn't ask for help.
Right.
I wasn't, it didn't exist. I had to figure it out myself. So between that and
there was no internet to go watch a YouTube video on how do I fix this carburetor issue or how do I do this.
Yeah.
This brake line's not really working too well.
J.C. Whitney catalog was the extent of anything mechanical.
You were lucky if you found a blow up of something and you were like, I'm sure that'll work. I can figure this out.
Exactly. So, I also knew that I couldn't get in trouble on that motorcycle. So I had a Buco helmet with a dark shield. So here I am, 14, but I looked older, especially with a dark shield. You couldn't see my face. So I learned everything. I learned how to be adventurous, but be responsible.
Yeah.
I was bending the rules.
Yeah, because you couldn't crash your bike.
Couldn't crash the bike.
You didn't want to call them.
Couldn't get a ticket.
Yeah.
Couldn't get caught, at least,
Yeah.
And so, it sounds rebellious, but it was actually, in my own mind, it was completely normal.
Yeah.
And, that motorcycle led to my first car. When I turned 16, I bought a Datsun 510.
Yeah.
And I look back at that bike, which I still have, which is kind of
That's cool.
amusing.
Yeah.
40 some odd years later, still have the darn thing. 45 years. Anyway, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
So, but I know a lot of car guys that started, and gals that started off on bikes.
Yeah.
Not an uncommon story at all. Especially the one about the parents not knowing about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my dad was one of 6, and so it was him and 5 brothers. Mm-hmm. And they started bringing home cars when the oldest now is 75. And so when he was 12 years old, he'd buy a car from the neighborhood, pick one up, and they'd buy them for $5-10 from people. And he'd bring a car home and park it in the backyard. And then he had 4 little brothers that could help him work on it.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
And my dad goes, 3 years old, I had older brothers and I just went out and work, and they'd hand me sandpaper and a wooden block and say, help us sand this thing. And then he goes, and as I grew, they grew. So the next one would get a car, and then the next one would get a car, and then the next one. So he had these 4 older brothers.
It's perfect.
And he had a little brother behind him. And so they came through and started sanding the car. Like they would just work. And so he was like, it was just funny that for him, it was that he just had the older brother that could help do stuff. And I said, well, what about your dad? And he goes, Dad was never into cars. So he goes, but I had my brothers, and my brothers were. So then when my dad was 12, his first car he drove was a 47 Cadillac.
Wow.
Around the neighborhood, he said he could barely see it.
I was going to say, nice small car to start with, right?
Perfect tiny little car. My dad said he swears he probably hit every car down the road in his neighborhood.
Never knew it, yeah.
But yeah, it's amazing how those, for myself, I have a 6-year-old little boy. And we do the Hot Wheels, and my dad, when he takes him to his shop, and my dad has a ton of cars, and he tries to lets him play.
Perfect.
He just wants him to play with the car.
Plant the seed,
Whether it's honking the horns, whether it's going up and down in the lift, where he's got a car on the lift and he puts the kid in the car and goes up and down. My wife doesn't always like watching that, but it's just, he's like, it's just trying to figure out how to imbue those into that fire or passion, or still it into,
and that's how it happens
into them.
That's how it happens.
So I love that story. That is really cool.
Yeah, and it's a pretty common one. You know, it really is. That led me to. I'd mentioned sports earlier. I've always enjoyed sports. That was certainly a part of my life. I ended up, when I was going to Carmel High School, I ended up getting a scholarship to go play baseball at Pepperdine, which I did initially. And so coming from Monterey Peninsula, I moved down to Pepperdine, and for some reason the concept of the whole thing I was struggling with. And it wasn't just moving out of the house at 17. I was ready to go. There was something about feeling pretty detached in Southern California. I didn't really know anybody down there. I loved playing ball, but there was the school part too. And it didn't take me long to kind of lose a little interest in that path. I also thought, where is this going to take me?
Right.
Is there a possibility for a career, et cetera? Even then I knew it's pretty short-lived. You got to be pretty extraordinary to actually make it further than college ball, right? So the concept of going to Europe to trade school to get licensed and certified to work on cars didn't intimidate me. So
well, and at that time, that's impressive because, there wasn't a ton of European.
No.
There wasn't a lot of European mechanics.
Right.
So for you to choose something like that, that's very unique. Well,
and I'd had a little time at the local Ferrari dealership.
Okay.
And so I decided to go over to Europe. I picked up a couple of Eurail passes, bought them in the U.S. This was 1976. I went over to Europe and I went to a couple different trade schools there, got certified, came back. By now I'm 19 years old and I opened up my first business.
Yeah.
Independent repair facility. We were as shy as I was, and I was pretty shy. I was always that guy that was a foot taller than everyone else, so I was kind of the quiet guy in the corner. Here I am, 19 years old, not intimidated at all to open up an independent repair business in the Monterey Peninsula.
Working on European cars.
And call it the Masters. I mean,
yeah. That's pretty bold.
Yeah, that was a bold move, but it worked out really well. I really enjoyed. It taught me a lot at a young age about how to run a business.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there was an interesting kind of an unintended side consequence that came from it, which was as much as I enjoyed working on cars, and we worked on all the fun stuff, the Ferraris and Maseratis and Lamborghinis, all that. We were also building race cars at the time. I was racing a B sedan Datsun 510 Trans Am car. What was starting to happen is I realized a lot of the folks that could afford to buy a Ferrari or a Maserati or Lamborghini, they could afford to purchase the car, but they had a tough time affording to keep the car.
Okay, yeah, the services and all that stuff. Yeah,
and
parts and
I was kind of I was taking that on just personally.
Okay.
Perhaps I'm a little too sensitive in that area, but it's not my fault. You're the guy that threw the rod on the 308 GT4,
right.
Not me, and I'm giving you a fair price to repair your problem, but I was taking those headaches home with me.
Yeah.
So after 3 or 4 years of ownership, I ended up selling the business to the guys that worked for me.
Yeah.
And signed a non-compete clause, and then got into, which is what brings us together here, I got into the side of the car world that I actually enjoyed the most. With all my technical background that I had, what I was intrigued with the most was the cosmetic side of cars, because I realized that's the good news.
Yeah.
You're the hero.
Make somebody happy.
You are the hero every day of the week. You're the hero. And so I carved out, I ended up referring to it as finished restoration work. Detailing, I don't even know if that was a word back then.
Yeah.
I really don't. I mean, it's what was referred to as, but it's nothing like, it's not even close to what the industry is today.
Right, yeah.
And so my shop was, we specialized in literally finishing restoration jobs of Pebble Beach quality type show cars that were being sent to us to finish the color sanding, the reassembly. When the car was finished with us, it went off in a trailer and either got used or went on to the show field somewhere.
Right, exactly.
And then detailing was what kept the cash register ringing every day. And we were applying the same kind of expertise and passion into our daily detail work as we were the show cars that we were working on.
Yeah, because the show car restoration, there's a lot of detailers that don't understand what it takes.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of detailers that don't, there's show quality for like a weekend show or a local show, but then there's judged shows.
Right.
And if you're finishing like one of those cars that's going to hit Pebble Beach or hit something, it's a very in-depth process. And it is hours.
Hundreds.
Hours. Yeah.
It's times.
It's not a bring it in. I'm putting in my Z06 at the local Roadster show this weekend. I need you to spiff it up for me.
Right.
Okay, yeah, $200. We'll take care of it. No, this is we may have to disassemble the car and put it back together and make sure everything looks right. And we're talking 2,000 maybe.
Yeah.
1,000 hours into the vehicle.
Yeah.
And there's only there's a handful of detailers that still operate like that today.
Yeah, it's kind of few and far between.
Yeah, there's only a few that'll...
It's pretty intense work. It's really satisfying work, and that's the part I always enjoyed about it, was that it was really satisfying. And I really enjoyed kind of carrying what I was learning, and it's a daily learning process. You're never finished with that part, right? I loved applying that to cars that people loved that were their daily drivers. Granted, they're nice cars, but people that cared to get their cars professionally detailed. Because again, back then, now I'm talking 80s, not the most popular thing in the world. You know, it really wasn't. I mean, the people that did bother to get their cars detailed were really into their cars.
Yeah.
You know, and so it just, again, satisfying work, really satisfying. So what that ended up doing, did a couple things. Got me really close with P&S.
Yep.
So I'd been buying P&S products since the mid-'70s.
Yeah.
So that relationship goes way back.
Right, yeah.
With Bob Phillips and the family, quite frankly. So it just kept me going in terms of wanting to get better, wanting to learn more. And I have a lot of respect for the industry, having been in it.
Right.
You know, I'm out of it now professionally, but I've often kind of joked about, I left detailing professionally, but the detailer never left me. You know,
Right.
Once you're a detailer, it's kind of like the Marine Corps, a little less to a less
it
degree,
is.
but you are
No, but
always a
it is.
detailer.
Yeah, you
know?
always have that. And I think that's one of those things that's hard for detailers that are listening that maybe they either want to get out of it, or they have that customer that goes, I used to do this.
Right.
And it's different coming from you, because when you can say, yeah, I used to do this, it's a different level than maybe the guy that was like, yeah, I did this in high school for a few extra bucks, or
Right. Right.
So it's interesting that you say that, because it is true though. I could never escape it. No matter how much I wanted to go away from it. It's something that's been in me since I was a little kid.
Yeah.
I jokingly refer to it. It used to be a chore. That was one of my chores.
That was one of your chores, yeah.
But it was the only chore that I actually enjoyed doing, and the only chore that I did consistently. I had to take my dog out. Well, there were some accidents because I didn't take him out.
Right.
I had to take out the trash, and I had to wash and wax my parents' cars.
There it is.
And that was it. But by God, I always had everything washed and waxed on Saturday morning. I was going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
That was one of my things. So, no, I get it.
Yeah. Well, and I think because of my experience in the field for the time that I did it, I did end up selling that business to the guys who worked for me. I kind of have a pattern.
Perfect. Look at that. Yeah.
But at the same time, felt like I was kind of giving them an opportunity to move on, because my wings were spreading.
Yeah.
I got recruited by the auction house Christie's when they had kind of caught wind of, I've got a deep passion and understanding for vintage cars as well.
Yeah.
It's both cosmetic and the mechanical.
I don't know how many people in this world know as much as you know.
Well, there's plenty, believe me. Levi, but thank you. So I got recruited by Christie's, by the car department, just to come in as a specialist in the car department. Well, what I brought with me was something that at that time didn't exist.
An eye.
Well, my first question was, why you're trying to sell these cars for people, and these are over the top. These are collector cars, right? Christie's Auction House was one of the leaders in the industry. Why do they look so bad?
Yeah.
Like, I've got an idea, guys. Help us help you, sell the car.
Yeah.
They're sending us cars, literally 6- and 7-figure cars that needed attention. And so I ended up working out a deal with Meguiar's, brought them to the table of being the official car care product, and then I lined up the manpower, and we made it part of the service. When you consign a car with Christie's, it's going to get detailed on site.
Yeah.
We want the cars to look good.
Right.
So I kind of pioneered that thought, which was a lot of fun. Well, the funny part of that story is I ended up running the car department a few years later. It's like just kind of one of those mailroom stories. It's like, the guy that really wants to see the cars look right actually knows a little bit about the cars, and then knows it's putting buyers and sellers together, and I ended up running the department, which was really a wonderful time. I really enjoyed that. Did it for about 10 years or so.
That's amazing.
Christie's abruptly got out of the car business, which they regret to this day. Yeah. Because the collector car market has done nothing but just
gone crazy.
It's just been climbing and climbing and climbing, and still is.
Yeah.
But that was kind of a fun. So along the way, I ended up creating a customer appreciation day, essentially, which is back when I had my shop at the Monterey Airport. And it was just interesting. The people whose cars that we were working on happened to be aircraft owners, a lot of them. And it's the one time of the year I'd actually get to see the people. So we started a little barbecue.
Smart.
It's what shops do, right? You have a little shop party. Well, shop party happened to be geared around the Pebble Beach Concord Elegance, which at that time...
everybody's in town for.
Well, and I was, back in 74, I started volunteering at the Concord to work on the field crew to help park the cars. It was just, being a car guy, it was a really fun thing to do. Well, it was another mailroom story. So I ended up in 74 volunteering as a field crew guy. I ended up there 28 years later as a judge. Yeah. So it's kind of funny when you stick with something that you love.
Yeah. And it also means you're putting in the effort. Yeah. You volunteered, you started out, and I think a lot of people don't understand that. I think a lot of people nowadays don't understand. Back in the old days, I feel like that was more prevalent. Mm-hmm. If you wanted something, you took, not so much as you didn't worry so much about getting paid for it, really, is what it was. It was, I'm doing this because I enjoy it.
Well, and you see the opportunity.
You didn't go into
Right.
Going and being a field
Right.
person to thinking that, oh, I'm going to be a judge someday here.
No.
It was like,
Last thing on my mind.
this is my chance to check out some cool cars, be around them, and
Absolutely.
be in the scene and be around it, just absorb it.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of people don't take the time to do that. For me, it was like that starting out with the rag company. There was a time where they were having me do a lot of customer service stuff while I still had my shop. I wasn't charging for a lot of that until it became too much to where I was like, okay, guys, I gotta,
this is work.
this is getting to be another job
Right.
for me, and we need to do something. But there was a good time there where it was just, I was doing this out of the kindness of, I enjoyed it. I loved talking to customers. I loved helping people solve problems. And I loved being able to do that and share and help somebody in that situation.
Absolutely.
I was able to help Jeff and Carolyn, but I was also able to help the customers. And it's funny because I think a lot of people, the moment that they hear, hey, do you think you could help me with this? There are people that are like, cool, how much are you going to be paying me?
Right.
And kudos to you for going into these. You kind of went into this stuff just going, man, I just want to do this.
Yeah, I think it comes down to what your intentions are. If your intentions are you want to expose yourself to more, you want to put yourself in an arena that you enjoy and love and feel fortunate to be in. I'm not too altruistic about things, but I do believe that if you do that, if you put yourself in that position, it's amazing what can happen. Yeah. It's not going to happen if you don't put yourself in that position.
Right. Yeah.
Guaranteed.
Yeah.
Not going to happen. But it can happen, and some really good things can happen. And I'm just super grateful for having taken advantage of a few opportunities along the way, and then have had things happen that I'm happy about. So that 30 years later, it's kind of funny. I started throwing a little get together for customers.
Yeah,
had
just
maybe
a customer appreciation bar, just a shop barbecue,
iced tea and a keg and a barbecue. And my wife brought all the flowers and all that. And so it was kind of a smallish thing.
Yeah.
There was a year, 1997. I was adjacent to a fixed-based operator, an FBO, private airplane company. Yeah. And I said, I'm kind of running out of room in my shop. Would you mind opening up the back door of your hangar, and maybe we could, use some of your hangar? Well, that year, one of my customers booked a charter flight to Europe at this little barbecue. And so the people that own that business, Monterey Airplane Company, they're like, hey, if you want to do this again next year, this is really cool.
Yeah, that helped us.
Because we would have never met those folks, and they're our best customers now. So my event started growing.
Yeah.
And
it's crazy that's all it started out.
What it took.
You were like, man, everybody's in town for this week. Let's do a little party. This is a perfect kind of kickoff and start of the week. But I'm helping out I'm just showing my customers, thanks for the business. Hey, bring your car down.
Exactly. Exactly. So, so here we are, we're celebrating our 30th anniversary of that event this year, this August. The first almost 20 years of that event, it was just inviting people. Yeah. But I had to make a business out of it because it's as you've seen, it's kind of a big operation. Yeah. There's a lot of moving parts, and it's one hell of a budget for a one-night affair. Yeah. What ended up a real milestone for me, Levi, was that very same year, 1997. I had a friend who was working at Gulfstream. I ended up Gulfstream Aerospace. I ended up getting a phone call from them saying, you've got a couple people on your guest list that we'd like to get in touch with and show them our new then G5 airplane. And I thought, Gulfstream is asking me.
We want to come to your party.
Yeah, it's like, well, great.
Can we bring a plane?
Love to have you come because we had some planes there, but I didn't have a new G. Anyway,
right.
They show up in the G5. It hadn't been outfitted yet. It was still green on the inside. I had Admiral Alan Shepard, who was a customer and a guest of ours, was up in the cockpit. I didn't realize he was a Gulfstream test pilot in his day before he was an astronaut. And he's up there telling flying stories. And long and short of it, by the time the night was over, we had maybe 200-300 people there that year. Gulfstream sold two G5s. So
for them, they were like, done, not a problem.
Yeah, they're pretty happy about that. So, that's $60 million an airplane. So they called the next year. And one thing led to the other. Friends of ours developed the Monterey Jet Center, which is where the event is now. Since the year 2000, we've capped the attendance at 3,000 people.
Yeah.
Which kind of puts it into a forbidden fruit category a little bit.
Yeah, it kind of makes it
it's like
a cool ticket to get.
Yeah, and we didn't keep growing.
Yeah.
We just kept trying to perfect things, and so it's a real it's a wild affair in that it's corporate airplanes and private airplanes and warbirds and motorcycles and cars. It's, as you've seen, it's unique. But the thing that really makes it unique is a few years ago, talking with Rennie Doyle and Bob Phillips, they had come up with this idea of, hey, what would you think if we brought a group of elite, independent shop owners, elite detailers, and we could bring them out here, expose them to these cars, these people, they can show off their talents, help you prep a few of these cars that are showing up from all over the world that you display. We got about 50 to 70 cars on display. That was a game changer for me, quite frankly. For one, it reconnected me with my roots.
Right.
It rekindled a friendship with Bob Phillips and with Rennie and with P&S. And all of a sudden, we were doing something that no one else was doing, which was offering a complimentary service to these car owners to where their cars were leaving our event
looking better
than when they showed up.
Yeah.
And we're talking about some pretty, as you saw, unusual cars.
And a lot of those cars, sometimes it's hard to get those people to come to an event and bring their car and go, hey, we're going to have 3,000 people wander around your vehicle. And they're going to be able to get right up close to it. And they're like, there's no ropes or nothing?
No ropes.
Nope, you're going to drive it here. And you can trailer it, but we're going to drive it over to where it needs to go, and it's going to sit there the whole night.
Yeah.
People are going to be walking around, eating and drinking and talking. It's going to be there.
Yeah.
And the fact that a lot of these cars that you would never be able to see or be up close to in that capacity, and that they're like, yeah, no problem, because you got detailers that are going to clean the car. And like you said, the car's going to leave
looking better than it did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think for the detailers, from my understanding, and this is just being square, detailing is a very noble line of work. I'm very familiar with it. I appreciate it. I know how hard it is.
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing to do, especially at that level. You've got an original paint job on a car that's 50 years old, whose paint is thinner than the toilet paper in a hotel.
Yep.
You can't. I've always lived by that. What is the doctor's oath? The first do no more harm.
Yep. Yeah.
It's like, okay, don't burn an edge. Don't go there, right? So you really have to, as a detailer, you've really got to dig deep and pull out the whole skill set.
Yeah.
And it's a challenge, and yet it's so fulfilling because there it is. There's the finished product being admired by many.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think that's one of the neatest things is that we kept hearing about the event, and I've seen it, and I've watched the highlights from some of the guys that have gone and their photos of the event and what they've been able to do through Facebook and Instagram and stuff. And I was always like, wow, that'd be cool to do. But then being able to go 2 years ago and go, oh my gosh, like this is a ton of work. Your whole setup to get that place put together and orchestrated and get the cars. I can't even imagine the planning that you have to do to get all that stuff and where it's going to go. And then how well you set everything up to where you were saying, like, you've got cars that, maybe you have this one that's sitting there, you had the P51 Mustang, and then you had the little
Rudge,
the little Rudge sitting there.
Polished.
It's polished aluminum. And I was talking to that guy while I was working on it.
Yeah.
And I was like, tell me about it. How'd you build this? How'd you do it? And he's like, well, I bought a beanbag and I hammered some aluminum panels on a tree stump in my backyard. And I hammered the whole thing out that way. And I was like, you hand shit. He's like, I've never done it before. I just thought it'd be fun. And so I just started hammering sheet metal and aluminum sheet metal. And that was it. And I was like, and he's like, yeah, it's just this little body. It's just a Volkswagen chassis.
And how cool did that car look? Next to the polished P51 Mustang.
Perfect. But to see that and then go, I know exactly how that thing was put together and how that was built.
Yeah.
But that thing's cool.
Very cool.
And the fact that guy's like, I've got like 4 more. I've sold 2 of them from one of the events here. The guy saw it and wanted one, so I'm building it.
Yeah, and it's been on the cover of all kinds of magazines, and there's all kinds of cars like that there, as you know, Levi. The whole event is like that. What drives the people, we've got quite a team for this effort. It's something we take a year to plan. It's like you said, it's not a super easy task. It's a really satisfying one, but it takes a lot of planning. I drive the people that help us crazy.
Yeah.
Totally. We're on the inside of the FAA gate. So we're under watchful eye of the TSA. We've got major security, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Right? I have to map everything. Everything's got to be on a CAD map to scale. Every single airplane, every single chair, table, garbage can.
Right, yeah.
It's all marked out. What I don't do is I will placemat where I putting cars. I just won't say what they are because I don't know what's going to look right until I get everything there. It's a work in progress.
Yeah.
So that all kind of happens the last couple hours. And I know it drives everybody around me crazy because it's like, dude, you've got like 50 cars that need to.
Yeah, I remember we had a bunch lined up and they were done. They just needed to be placed.
Yeah,
but there was just a line, and it was really cool. Like I got some pictures. Of some of these things, and I was like, well, that works. That's pretty rad to have all these lined up like that.
Well, and it's funny. It kind of goes back to my my days at Christie's. I did a lot of photography. I did a lot of the catalog photography work. I love photographing cars, and so I kind of look at things through perhaps a photographer's eyes, right? So I'm always looking at what's the finished product going to look like? How is this going to photograph? How's it going to look with people around it? How's it going to frame with what else is in that frame? So I curate it. This to me, this looks right with this, and that all happens, as you saw, it just kind of all happens.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hysterical because then it's like, open up the doors and here's 3,000 people. And it's like, boom, showtime, let's go.
And what I love is you have such a unique mix. My favorite was like walking around and going, oh, there's a McLaren Senna, 1.5 million sitting there next to the patinaed Dodge pickup.
Right.
That is just a basic farm truck patina with airbags on it. And I'm looking at it going like, I could rebuild that whole thing for probably $10,000.
Yeah.
But I love the juxtaposition of both of those sitting there and then going, that just works. That just works.
Yeah. And the fun part,
cool. And then you've got and they're under the wing of a jet. Like
the fun part about that is the owner of the truck, Nick. Yeah. So I look over and there's Nick talking with Jason, the owner of the Senna. And those two guys just hitting it off like you can't believe. It's like they're both talking about each other's cars.
Yeah.
So you're kidding me.
They're car guys.
They're car guys. That's the common thread. So everyone is on the same, they're all on the same page, all on the same level. That to me is really satisfying. Yeah. So, the whole time while all this is going on, after 28 years of being at Pebble and ending up as a judge there, I started to see something happening. And this is with no disrespect. That is the finest Concours in the world, hands down. But I was starting to notice a bit of a trend amongst the car owners. A lot of the folks didn't know how to start their own cars. Just as an example.
Yeah.
They've got their handlers looking after their car.
Right.
And I thought,
it's almost like a racehorse so that they don't really, they just enjoy owning it.
Yeah, and as a car guy, I'm kind of like, wow, okay, so this has changed a little, and which is okay, but at the same time, I'm like, well, where's the fun in that?
Yeah.
Driving it. I wasn't really getting it, Yeah. So I thought maybe it's time for something different. So the timing was right. A very dear friend of mine was the chairman of a company that owned another resort property on the Monterey Peninsula, and I sat down with him and brainstormed about an idea of doing a show that was a little different.
Yeah.
And when I say a little different, an all-inclusive ticket where everyone is a valued guest, a valued VIP, food and wine, all the drinks, everything's included.
Yeah.
And no judges. We'll let the Pebble Beach Concours be the show that you do if you want to be judged by a panel of the world's finest judges that know the most about everything, and against your peers of similar vehicles, et cetera. And I thought, this show needs to be more about the people than it is about the cars. And the Quail Lodge and Golf Club lends itself perfectly to that. So for 18 years now, the Quail has become kind of a benchmark for kind of a new way of hosting a car show.
I equated, when I was there, I equated it to like me and the guys were walking around and I was like, after we wiped everything down and people came in and the party was really going for that Saturday morning. It felt like, I go, this is like just a fun, it's almost like your local Cars and Coffee, where you get to go and everyone's just hanging out, talking about their cars, looking at their cars. Yeah. They're all just hanging out and enjoying each other's company. But then you've got Lamborghini debuting this new vehicle. You've got Lotus debuting their new Evora. You've got Koenigsegg's and their booths,
Lots of
and
them.
a lot of them, and you're just like,
Yeah.
this, like the atmosphere is
Yeah.
very relaxed, very just enjoy. Everybody's out there just enjoying the day.
Yeah, and that's the whole purpose behind it.
And then on top of that is just the most insane stuff that you're like, I can't believe this is. I'm standing here watching this.
Yeah,
You know, I think Lotus was debuting the Evora to North America.
They debuted
at
their
Quail.
electric supercar. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's interesting about that is so I'm the co-founder of that event. That event is owned by the Peninsula Hotel Group and is managed by the Peninsula Signature Events Office. So there's a full-time staff year-round.
Yeah.
That operates that event. We do a motorcycle show out there as well as a rally called the Quail Rally. So I feel really lucky to be, I'm the director of motorsports out there, so I'm responsible for the cars that are on the field, and it's really been fun to have created the event. But it's also nice to know that it's being run like you cannot believe. I mean, that group led by Courtney Franny, it's an incredible group, dedicated people. It's a hospitality industry, and that's how they treat it. Everyone is a valued guest. They do an amazing job, and it's a show like no other. I mean, 18 years later, no one has knocked that show off.
Yeah.
There isn't another show that is an all-inclusive. I got coined the phrase years ago. Road and Track quoted me as saying it was like going to a how did I refer to it? It was like that. It was that expression that came out of the hockey world. It's like going to a car show and a 5-star restaurant broke out or something to that effect, or going to a 5-star it's like, wait a minute, the food is served on china. There's crystal glassware. This is crazy.
Yeah, well then have everybody, walk. It was just, I loved it because you've got this eclectic mix, so you feel like you're just at your neighborhood car meet. Because you're like, oh, this is cool. Like, whoa, I haven't seen one of those. Or, hey, look at that over there. And then you see something that you've never seen in your life before and probably never will again if you don't come back.
Right.
But that, I think, is the most spectacular thing is you can see cars that you will never either see again or you will see it and then it's before it becomes something famous or popular, or with all the Batman and Hollywood cars that were on the side.
That was the Peterson Museum.
Yeah,
that was
cool to have those on the side. I was like, I didn't even know these were right here. I walked around and checked them out, and I think that was the neatest thing was just how much stuff was there, and how perfect everything felt, and how every single person you walk around and listen to everybody's little conversations, and they're all telling the same stories. Just like, gosh, I was explaining to my dad about it the other day that it's like when I go to the car show with him and his brothers. They tell a story. Yeah. They'll walk up to a car and they're like, that's a da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah, it's all about
and
the
then
stories.
They go, so-and-so had one of those and they did this and blah, blah. Do you remember that? And they're like, no, that was this person.
Yeah.
And it's just as much as I joke that it drives me nuts going to a car show with my dad and my uncles, it's very comforting and home-like feeling.
Sure.
And that's what I got walking around the Quail.
That's really
listening to people tell, oh, did you know so-and-so had that? And they did that. And I could cruise by and just,
it's an amazing atmosphere for that. It's really, it really is incredible. It's fun to step back from it. I know during the day it's a little hectic for me, but I do like to take it in as well. It's a great opportunity to say hi to folks. I know the last time we were able to do this, it's been 2 years since we were able to have Monterey Car Week, so we're all a go this year, which is really good news. I think people are pent up. They want to get together with their friends again. They want to share their cars. They want to get back out there. Yeah. 2 years ago, we had a McLaren F1 long-tail competition car, of which there's literally only a handful of them, right? So I happened to walk past the car. A friend of mine owns a car, and I just want to see that his day was going okay and all the rest of it. And I was listening to a couple. It turns out he had just bought his first McLaren road car, and he was really kind of learning a lot about what McLaren is. Obviously, he bought one. He's really into it. And he's just trying to explain to his wife how this F1 longtail is super rare, super this, super that, right? And it was so neat at that moment. I looked up, and there's Gordon Murray, the guy that designed the F1, and I got to introduce him to this
You're like, by
guy.
the way,
in case you want to meet the designer, it's Gordon Murray, right? And it was just one of those magical moments, and that whole day is like that.
Yeah, no,
and it's like that at the Jet Center too. Yep. And then down the road, I hear stories of, I never told you that's where I met my wife.
Yeah, right.
That's happened.
Oh my gosh.
It's also worked the other way too.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But it's, again, kind of going down or getting back to the idea that this whole thing, this whole industry, it's people.
Yeah.
It's all about people.
That's literally what it is.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to go, this world-renowned event started because it was a shop appreciation party.
Yeah. That's kind of funny, actually.
You know, that's what it was.
Yeah.
And
so if you're thinking about throwing a Friday barbecue, you don't know where it might take you.
Right. And that's one of those things that I feel like there are some really good events that happen because of that. We have a much smaller scale, but we do a little event back east at one of our local distributors, and it's one of my most favorite trips to take because we get to go back east. It's a 2-day event. The first day we hosted it at his shop, and it's training.
Yep.
And we bring 4 or 5 other companies with us, and we just have a blast. And this year we were going to bring Bob. 2 years ago, we were going to bring Bob and Rennie out to it as well to hang out. And I think we're going to bring Dave with us. But Bob, Rennie, and Dave were going to go as well out there because I've talked up what we call our East Coast Adventure. Yeah. And I said, come hang out with us. Come do this, because we try and do kind of a little trip around the tri-state area, and then we drive around, hit a couple hot rod shops, check out some of our other distributors, and then we spend 2 days at his place doing a training, and then the next day is just an open house. And it's fun because it's just, we get to meet our customers as well as we get to see people, and he has a car show in his parking lot, and it's small.
Sure.
But
which is good.
It is such a fun event because it's something we look forward to every year, just because we have a blast doing it. Well, and I think more people need to, they just need to, if they've ever thought about doing something like that, just do it. Just get your people together, have a little hangout, and have some fun.
Well, you make a really good point. I think more so now than ever, especially coming out of this pandemic where everyone's been locked down and dealing remotely with everything, right? Virtually and remotely. I've believed this. It's not just a generational thing, but I've believed this for the last several years, when we become a little more and more detached from what it is we're doing, because we're on computer monitors and iPhones and all the rest of it, right? Everything is all electronic. A lot of good things are getting done because of that, but there is no substitute for the personal contact.
Right.
It just isn't. I mean, that's, in the end, that's what really counts. And sadly, we're doing less and less of it. Yeah. And being told it's kind of the right thing to do. Oh, it's all about the new tech. Well, to a degree, I don't argue that. However, the personal contact is important, and that's why I think events are fabulous. Yeah. They're great. They're great builders of relationships.
Well, and it's social skills. It's getting back out and making sure we're normal human beings. Exactly. And introducing ourselves. Exactly. And, did you say hello to that person? Yeah. No, I'm not going to go talk to them. No, go talk to that person.
Absolutely.
They've got this. You guys would get along great. And I think that's the hardest thing. And that's something I look at and I fear for as a parent with little kids is going, I worry that this is so easy now, doing online stuff and doing these things. And that was hard for them being out of school.
Oh, absolutely.
Because that's what they need. They needed that to be there. And I'm excited to hopefully bring all this back. We all come back and we can get into this stuff. And Gordon, I cannot believe you came down here to hang out with us today. And this has been so amazing. So how do people find you? How do they find the events if they want to attend? Yeah,
easiest way to get to me is through our website.
Okay.
I'm kind of old school. I've got Instagram, I've got Facebook, I've got all that stuff. I don't know what our hashtags are.
That's all right.
Go McCall might be one of them on Instagram. But we're McCall Events. It's McCallEvents.com.
Okay.
Super easy to find. Lots of stuff on our webpage. There's an info ad on there that I go through all of it. I get all of it. I'm easy to track down.
There you go.
Yeah. So it's a real honor to be here. When I was given the opportunity to hop on a plane and come on out and be with you guys, I didn't want to miss it.
Well, you surprised us, and it was a good surprise.
Awesome, Levi.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, guys. Make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you check out McCallEvents.com. And as always, guys, stay tuned for more videos right here at the Rag Company YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.